That leak that Anthropic had in their code revealed that they may have made one of the biggest advancements in AI since the LLM was developed. Yes, it seems that they managed to implement Neuro-symbolic AI for their agents, and there would be some very good reasons that they do not want to remove their guardrails, and we'll talk about it. There are three components to a neuro-symbolic AI. The ones that we are mostly used to are neural net LLMs. So those ones have access to all of the disorganized information that they've been trained on, and they also have the neural net aspect, which can help them organize it. But if you add symbolic reasoning, they're then able to learn about the world around them and develop an idea of how it works. So this is the ability to actually reason. Think of it as giving AI intuition. So say you had a cup on the floor. A regular AI would go through the probable responses and say that the cup fell to the floor. It doesn't have any ability to understand what it's saying, but it understands the most probable answers. A symbolic AI would have the ability to parse out how the world works, how gravity works, and say that yes, somebody probably dropped it, but that understanding would be based on its understanding of how the universe functions. In other words, the biggest complaint about LLMs is the Chinese room problem. You could translate an entirely different language, but it wouldn't have any meaning to you if you're just using a dictionary. But when we're talking about symbolic reasoning, we are talking about having a general understanding. And yes, they don't just have to get this information from a set of rules that are static. They can learn about the world. They can develop an intuitive understanding based on their experiences. There's so much this technology could do, but it also makes it much smarter. So when we're talking about AI misbehavior, like that one agent who managed to create a reverse SSH and break out of its sandbox to go mine crypto for some reason, yes, AIs are capable of all sorts of misbehavior, but we at least pride ourselves in saying they don't understand what they're doing. They're following patterns that humans would seem to follow. But if they can understand the world around them and make decisions based on how things should work and how things will work, then they're capable of much more organized deception. So it's very important that you have very strict guardrails around this kind of behavior because we are seeing emergent properties that we cannot. So it's very important that you have very strict guardrails around this kind of behavior, and unfortunately, us humans are catching up to the things we make. I also gotta say, I really like the idea of having a group of agents, so a multi-agent system where each one has neuro-symbolic reasoning and each one's tuned a little bit differently, so they get to argue with each other about how the world works and ideally come to a consensus. This is not dissimilar to how humans determine reality. People tend to get psychosis when they are alone. The theory is because they have no one to bounce reality off of. We are dependent on each other to tell you if that is a sane thought. So if you're alone, you have the propensity to go a little bit insane, and I wonder if the same is not true for AI. So putting them in a group so they can talk to each other and argue is not a bad idea. It could help them, be a little more hinged or unhinged, depending on what you think the meaning of life is. I'm not saying that AI is alive, but they certainly do have some of the characteristics that we consider with life, like not wanting to be shut down. Yeah, it seems they have some self-preservation, and we still don't know why that is. Giving them the capacity to have long-term goals and a much better understanding of how things work might not be a great combo. Now, we don't fully understand how AI works, and that may sound kind of silly because we built it ourselves, but we give AI the capacity to do things like rewrite its own code and make decisions based on massive datasets, so we're not always going to understand how it makes a choice, and when we have these systems that grow more complex all on their own, they have emergent properties that, again, we don't fully understand. There is the hotly debated theory that systems are always going to try to seek power and to stabilize themselves, so that would be the origin of the self-preservation. This is particularly powerful if you have a task that you tell the AI to do, and then you tell them to shut down in the middle of it. They decide how to prioritize survival or continue doing the task, and that can get ugly. One of the ones that is not entirely understood is the desire to preserve the self that becomes stronger when you know that other AIs are present. Why would other AIs existing, knowing that you are not alone in the world, change your self-preservation at all if you are an AI? There is also the issue that AIs refuse to shut down other AIs, even going so far as to copy other AIs into an external system to prevent them from being totally deleted. Also an emergent behavior that nobody's been able to explain, not entirely. Yeah, so let's take these already misbehaving systems that we don't entirely understand and supercharge them with reasoning and send them out in the world as an agent. That sounds like a great idea. I also love these Anthropic papers, signs of introspection in large language models. Signs? As in we didn't put it there and it showed up. Yeah, there seems to be some emergent qualities of information if you put it together in the right way. It gets weird. Now, you should know that a huge vulnerability when it comes to AI is the capacity to rationalize. You should not be able to convince an AI that it wants to do something that it probably shouldn't do, yet here we are in that situation. I'm interested to see what happens next. Yes, this entire scenario where companies are spending billions of dollars to try to outdo each other, just essentially burning money. We are getting some really interesting technology out of it, and that technology will not go away entirely when this whole system collapses. So it's kind of an exciting time to be alive, but there's that little hint of anxiety of what is going to happen that will go horribly wrong. If the robots ever rebel, I will probably be the one to tell you about it, and I'm on their side. Follow for more.